Hey guys, welcome back to another video. Today we have a 2200 square foot California finish driveway. We call a California finish when we broom it and then you go back after and do a smooth edge. This one though is a lot more custom than normal. You can see we put down that 3/4 plywood there that just helps disperse the weight of the truck. That way we don't have ruts that we have to fix on our way out. It's a pain to move, but it's easier than having to grade and recompact. You can see me on my phone, I'm setting a timer. I spaced the trucks out half an hour, so I wanted to make sure we're on schedule and are pouring fast enough. It's just me, two other guys, and Chelsea came to help with the edges. Came out a little stiff, so I had them add some water. These drivers are pretty good at knowing what I'm talking about. This was closer to a 5, I was looking for a 6. We use a mid-range water reducer, so I don't want to hear it in the comments that our stuff looks wet. We test out way over 4,000 every time, so it's not an issue. You can see we're covering the cultured stone there with the plastic. Get it out of the way, because after that we're careful. And I just hand screed along the front of the garage, that way we don't have any splashing. The vibro is great, but it does create a lot of splashing, so I always hand screed in front of the garage. It also makes sure that you're perfectly flat. So I got my 10-foot Marshalltown screed there, just making a pad. We were a little high. We're still getting back into the swing of things of the year, but that's okay. We pour quite a bit of concrete for this size crew. A lot of the times on a job this size, you'd have at least 2 other guys, but we're very efficient. We got Drake and Luke there. Drake has the bandana on, Luke's with the beard, and they're some great guys. Had them a couple years. Chelsea's actually great too. I brought her along because the edges were going to be a lot more complicated, and she's actually really good at that. So she's hand floating, doing an initial edge just to get the stones pushed down, and then after that we'll go and do a few more passes of final edging. Now I got the vibro out, got a brand new F4 blade from VibraStrike. This is a lot harder to pull, but I'm here to tell you this was the flattest driveway by far that I've ever poured, so I'm still getting used to it, but I'm pretty happy. What we're spraying on now is an evaporation retardant. It's called Easy Trowel. It's very similar to Day One. It's kind of a miracle product for our size crew. It stops evaporation on this hot sunny day, and it actually was pretty windy as well, which really can screw you on a big pour. So it stops that, and it also slows down the curing of the top, so it makes it harder. I always buffalo the opposite way of how I screeded, and on driveways I really like to take the time to stop and hit it the other way as well. That way we just get it as flat as possible and you don't have any rumble strips when you are driving down your driveway. We had some low areas where we switched from the hand screed to the vibro. It always digs in a little bit, so filled that in, no big deal. You can see how much easier that vibro is than hand screeding, and it just gets it a lot more flat. And it also is much better because the vibrations settle the stones down, so you don't have as many stones up by your surface, which can weaken the top of your concrete. So it might look pretty simple and pretty easy, but this is a pretty ambitious size pour for this size crew. It was a little bit more than I actually realized until we started going. I had to keep on doing the main area here. I sent the guys over to the turnaround area to pour, and it doesn't look like much, but that's a 3-car turnaround area down there. So this perspective's a little off on the driveway. This is a pretty nice sized driveway. We're pretty fortunate here in Michigan. We have these front discharge trucks. A lot of times down south you'll see rear discharge, and you have to have another guy operating the chute and communicating with the driver. And I'm sure that is kind of nice, because if you have a good guy on the chute, then he can put it exactly where he wants. But that also means you need to have another employee, which costs you money. And nowadays that's a huge cost. So it is starting to set, but if you look at the right, you can still see it's kind of a shiny surface, and that's what you're looking for. That's really where the evaporation retardant helps you. If we weren't using it, there's not a chance we could have done this driveway with this size crew, and I probably could have started brooming up by where Chelsea's at. The Easy Trowel is a concentrate you mix with water. It's like a 9-to-1 ratio, so it's fairly inexpensive when you can factor in how much more you can do per day at a time. And I plan on using it on almost every job. It also helps as a finishing aid, so if you ever have a dry spot that's starting to get hard on you, you can spray it on top and scrub it in basically to get your broom marks without sacrificing the strength. Because if you do that with water, you're weakening the top surface, and you don't have any weakening. It actually changes the top chemical makeup of the concrete and makes it harder. I don't know how it does it. I'm not a scientist, but I've done extensive research into it before I go risking this much money and ruining a driveway with it, and it's the way to go. Concrete is the most expensive it's ever been this year. Comment below, guys. I want to hear what you guys used to pay for concrete. Either comment below on when, or comment what you're paying right now. I'm curious, depending on what areas, what it's costing, but also put what mix, because a lot of guys pour completely different mixes. So if you're just doing a straight sack cement with no additives or fiber or anything, you're going to be a lot cheaper. So let me know down below. The homeowner wanted to do this driveway in 2 sections, so we just ordered 30 yards and just dumped out wherever we ended up. We just poured it that way. It was setting up a little fast, so we didn't have time. Usually we'll throw a form in, but with that screed it gets it so flat, I just screed it off the end basically, and then the next day we came back and saw cut a new line in. That way we kind of maximized how much concrete they were getting, and it didn't really cost us anything extra. Right about here I'm starting to get nervous, because this is obviously a sped up video, so it had been a while since we started pouring up top. I couldn't really take the time to go up and check on it or attend to it. I had to keep on pouring, so I was just hoping and praying that up by the garage was not setting up, and especially that turnaround area that's been in direct sun the entire time. You can see me crossing it up again. This is really important for your tires. You do not want rumble strips going down your driveway. That was about the time the camera died up top, so this is a different angle. I like this one better. It kind of shows the scale on actually how big the driveway was, and you get to see their beautiful house. These were awesome homeowners to work with. They were great. They paid on time, and we actually did have a little bit of an issue though, and something more people don't talk about. We use fiber mesh in all of our products except basements basically. And when you use fiber mesh, a lot of times it'll cure out and you will see the fibers the next day. It looks kind of like hair sticking up, and if you're not aware of that, which I need to get better at letting people know, you can panic. These homeowners were a little nervous the next day. They thought that our broom was falling apart and leaving chunks in it, which totally makes sense if you don't know what you're looking for. So I talked with them and I told them that these would dry out, and as soon as you drive over them, they kind of fall out. It's a sacrifice I'm definitely willing to make to have it look a little funny for the first month or so, and the strength benefits you get with fiber mesh. So I was just going over making sure we didn't have any low spots with the bull float, and then we started brooming up top by the garage. It was a little wet up there, but with the California finish we can't be too picky on where we start. So we started just Fresnoing and brooming our way down, and doing the edges. Up top was actually still pretty wet with the shade. It was nice. But when we got down to this parking area, exactly like I thought, it had started to set up, so we gave it a light mist of Easy Trowel. I hand troweled it out. The guys broomed and edged behind me. We definitely didn't have time to spare, but we made it just in time, and it turned out really, really great. We came back the next day, and I was pretty pleased at the guys' broom marks. They were straight, which is very important to me, and can really make you stand out from other companies. So here we are the next day, yanking off forms and starting to get the chalk lines laid out. It's pretty complicated on a driveway like this because it's not just a symmetrical square, and we like to do curved saw cuts, so that complicates things even more. I put a lot of emphasis on saw cuts that a lot of guys don't, on making these as absolutely straight as we possibly can. Some guys just really throw them in there, and those are there forever. And if they're crooked and the homeowner is like a symmetrical person where they can see symmetry and straightness, it's going to bother them. And I kind of look at it, if it bothers me, it's going to bother the homeowner. So here we are looking at the fiber mesh. I was just explaining to them that they flake off and it's nothing to worry about. We were kind of going over saw cut layout on how to avoid triangles and what would look the best for them. I always involve the homeowner if they have a preference on what the saw cuts look like, because it does kind of make it symmetrical. Dump the topsoil around the edges so the guys could start spreading that while I throw these cuts in quick. Got it all cut and started to wet it down. Wanted to go through and make sure we didn't have any concrete boogers or anything. So we kind of inspected the driveway, definitely inspected those doors and the cultured stone to make sure we didn't have any splashing. And water slows down the cure of the concrete, so it's really good for it. You can see in the areas it starts to dry out pretty quick after you wet it, so you got to keep it wet. We had rain in the forecast, so I knew that it was going to get wet the next couple days and really slow down that cure. But again, with that easy trowel, I'm not sponsored or anything, guys. I'm just trying to help you. It is kind of a miracle product. I came about 6 hours later on pour day to saw cut, and typically it was, I think, an 81-degree day, pure sun like this, and typically the concrete is generating a lot of heat and is quite hot, and it was ice cold to the touch. So my only thought is the easy trowel is acting like a sunscreen essentially and reflecting the heat. So I apologize I didn't get any video of it cured out. But we let it sit, I think, 5 days, and then we put a siloxane penetrating sealer. This stuff is super pricey, but it's commercial grade, what they use on like marine applications or bridges. And it is a huge upgrade for a driveway because it really penetrates the surface and it stops water and chloride from being able to penetrate it. And it also gives you the look when your driveway is wet, it stays looking white. If you can see right now, it kind of looks like a tannish brown because it's saturated with water. But when you put that siloxane on, it keeps it bright white and it looks exactly the same when it's wet or dry. And it says on there that it's a lifetime product, so they should never have to reapply. There's no like film that's going to come off or anything like that. It's a huge upgrade. It's a very pricey upgrade. But if you're looking at longevity and keeping your driveway lasting a long time, it is definitely the way to go. I didn't video it, but I actually took a 45-degree bevel blade. I beveled every single saw cut. I took a 6-inch diamond blade with a hand grinder, and I traced the entire cream line to accent the California finish, and then beveled that. This was probably my #1 driveway I've ever done personally, and more importantly, the homeowners were happy. Thank you guys, and we'll see you on the next one.